Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We're here with Josh at YBF Ventures, and we're going to talk about Open Index Protocol and Flow, two projects that tie in together. So welcome Josh. And
hello.
What happens here at YBF Ventures? What brought you here?
Yeah, so YBF Ventures is a Melbourne-based co-working hub and startup sort of ecosystem. They also have a small venture fund on the side. Where we are right now is actually in their newly set up dedicated Web 3.0 environment. So this is sort of a hub for people who are building on various Web 3.0 related projects to sort of come together, leverage YBF's sort of network of corporate, government, ecosystem partners, and I guess get themselves out there and host events and just collaborate.
Yep. So Open Index Protocol is a pretty deep dive into rebuilding a lot of aspects of the internet itself from the ground up, and this isn't something that's come about recently. You've been working hard on this for 6 years, I think.
Yeah, not me personally, but yeah, the original founding team have been working pretty tirelessly on both Flow and the Open Index for quite some time. So Flow is one of the first ever cryptocurrencies, launched in 2013. It's a Bitcoin Litecoin fork, and it's been organically mined. And then the Open Index Protocol, I believe, was founded around 2014.
Yeah. So how does it all work? So what are the real world problems it's trying to change, and maybe some real world examples? We're seeing a lot of metadata being used for nefarious purposes by Google and Facebook, and that's the problem you're trying to fix. Is that right?
In some ways. So there's the Open Index component of it. That's where the Flow chain comes in. And Flow is what provides us that universal metadata index. So metadata just being data about data. It's what allows you to sort, categorize, suggest, and sort of interact with content. The Open Index Protocol itself is a broader mixture of things that's really around opening up digital content and balancing incentives and sort of bringing control back to content creators. And that's not to say that they're completely removing all of the all of the control from front-end platforms and digital content and media companies, but it's just more to say that they're rebalancing that control a little bit.
So like a lot of projects, we're just trying to decentralize who has control and access to the data about data, as you said, rather than it being siloed to those big companies.
That's absolutely right. The whole purpose is to have that self-sovereign, universal set of metadata for everybody to work with. But similarly, in that fashion, it also sort of manifests itself in the actual content itself. So within the Open Index Protocol, there's various different layers of the stack. You have the Open Index and sort of your database ledger. So that's where Flow comes in, as well as the various cryptocurrency blockchain networks for payments. There's also a decentralized storage component, primarily using IPFS, and then later Filecoin and other similar projects as they start to emerge. There's somewhat of a computational component as well, primarily through the proof of work mining. And then, of course, they're architecting in a governance solution at the moment, so that there'll be an establishment of an Open Index Protocol working group for everyone to sort of coordinate in a way that's sort of somewhat decentralized.
Yeah. So this is pretty deep, pretty dry stuff. So what's some real world examples of what becomes possible for maybe an artist or someone that's building a computer game, a song? How does this all work in the real world once we have a fair protocol?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many different things within it, but one that I really like is the way that it sort of shifts the model, sort of the digital content publishing model. So in the traditional, the legacy web, what typically tends to happen is that you'll have a content creator who will then publish their items of content out to each individual platform. So, they'll publish a particular video out to YouTube, then they might publish it out to, I don't know, Netflix or whatever, each platform, right? And each time that they do that, they're agreeing to whatever they're submitting the rights over to that particular platform, they're agreeing to their terms and conditions, whatever monetization sort of terms and revenue shares that they've delegated. So they're sort of submitting all control over to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then the issue there is oftentimes they're left with a very, very small fraction of the pie. So what's happening here, here being the open index, is it sort of shifts the model where the content creator is back in control, where they set, they put in all the necessary metadata, so that's the name, that's the genre of the content, it's the price that they'd like to set for it. They'll have a series of wallet addresses that the revenues will be automatically routed to. But then more importantly than that, they can set things like, they might want to give 5% of all revenues to influencers who share their content. They might want to give a 10 or 20% revenue share to the front-end platforms that display the content. So that would be your YouTubes of the world. And then so all of that gets entered into that flow ledger entry when they upload and push the content. Now what happens here is the content gets pushed to the open index. So it sort of sits in this decentralized cloud, so to speak. And then what happens is all those platforms that we spoke about before, they come to the content. So it introduces an element of curation into sort of their business models now, where rather than the content creator going and pushing it out to each platform, they push it to the open index, and then the platforms choose what content they display. So it's balancing things in the sense that, if I'm, let's say, an emerging musician, for instance, if I want to get my song out there, the more traditional route at the moment is you try and get it up onto iTunes. Well, the trouble there is iTunes has a sort of standard rate that they charge for each individual item of content. It's $1 per song. The trouble there is that not everybody's song is equally valuable. If I'm an emerging artist, and then you've got Justin Bieber on the platform, I think people are going to be a lot less keen on paying $1 for my music than they are, say, Justin Bieber, depending on who the person is, of course. So now it introduces a lot more freedom and flexibility on my side. So what I can do is I can sort of look at someone like a Justin Bieber, and I can say, okay, he's charging $1 per song, and he's already got the reach, he knows that he can drive that. Perhaps to incentivize people to pick up my content, what I'll do is I'll charge it at, 10 cents. But then more importantly than that, it introduces what I like to call venture content. Now, I say venture content because it reminds me a little bit of the venture capital model. And that's to say that, let's say I want to incentivize those front-end platforms to pick up my music and help me sort of achieve scale. Well, in the traditional sort of world, that's really difficult because it's all built on, digital content these days is driven by volumes. So there's very, very little incentive for these front-end platforms to help emerging content creators succeed. Whereas in this case, what I could do is I'll price my content lower, but let's say for my first song or my first album, in order to help myself get out there, I'll give a 40% cut to the platforms that pick it up, and 10% to influencers who share my content. So then one of these platforms, they might sort of have a curation team, right, that are out trying to scout these opportunities. And let's say, just for argument's sake, I was Ed Sheeran at sort of a very early stage in his career. So a lot of potential, but just hadn't yet broken through. Now they could sort of find my music and go, crap, this guy's good. There's a lot of potential here. And they might identify that, look, if he's charging less per song, but we're getting a significantly higher cut from each time someone drives a sale through our platform, as opposed to Justin Bieber, who knows he's going to get the scale, and so he might give them, a 1% cut if they're lucky. So they might go, if we help him achieve scale, we could actually end up making more off his first song or first album than we are off Justin Bieber, who's achieving significantly more scale, but the margins are so much lower.
Yeah, so you're bringing in game theory and free market economics and
exactly right,
decentralizing that industry for all
exactly right.
Content creators, and that's just one example. But the possibilities, once we get into the wide world of everything on the internet these days, as we said, it's very siloed and controlled by Google and those search engines and all the algorithms. Absolutely. And we're just really leveling that playing field from the the ground up, from literally from the protocol up on what the internet's built on. So
that's exactly right.
You've done well to describe that there, because it is deep stuff, as I said, guys, and it is pretty dry if you're not used to all this sort of stuff. But it's so important because of what we're seeing happening on the internet these days, being policed and whatever. And we know ourselves, we'd be demonetized if we say certain words, or if we talk about drugs in a YouTube video and stuff like that. So,
exactly right.
So where would you love to see this all going in the next few years? And do you think we're already seeing the community asking for change without realising that maybe this is a project that can bring about change?
I think absolutely right. And I mean, so terminology that we tend to use at Open Index Protocol is we're trying to move away from what they call walled-off gardens. You know, these are your YouTubes of the world, so your iTunes of the world, where, you know, their business models really are built around trapping consumers in. You know, when you buy a song in iTunes, you own it within iTunes. I can't transfer it elsewhere. Yeah. So I'm then, you know, sort of locked into that platform for a fairly long time. And we're seeing that start to happen with also platforms like Facebook, right? And so what we're trying to do is move away from these walled-off gardens to what we call the open jungle. Now that term, those terms came from Tim Berners-Lee, who's sort of the founding father of what we call the web today. Yeah. And Amy and Devon, who were the original inventors of the Open Index, they ran Tim Berners-Lee through the Open Index and their media platform, Alexandria. And one of his comments was, you can make a walled garden very, very sweet, but at the end of the day, the open jungle is always more appealing.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of one of those things where Amy and Devon were actually asking me at some point, you know, we had HTTP, TCP/IP, and we ended up sort of coming up with a catchy nickname for it. The web, what are we going to call this? You know, the Open Index Protocol, whilst a nice name, is not really very catchy. So we decided that we'd probably end up calling it or nicknaming it the Jungle. Yeah. You know, and there's a nice tagline in there, right? Welcome to the jungle. But yeah, so we're trying to move away from those walled-off gardens to those open jungles and sort of open up content and democratize content. And the best way to describe it is it's shifting the model from these walled-off gardens to instead, and trying to compete to trap consumers in, to instead competing on what we call subjective services. So the content platforms of the future, what they're really going to be doing is they're going to be competing, so they're going to be pulling from the same universal pool of content with the rules set by the content creators, or whoever owns the rights to said content. What they're going to be instead competing on is things like user experience and design, perhaps even company ethics. You know, people might want to access content from companies that they sort of align with on an ideological level. Of course, platform performance, search and suggestive algorithms. You know, who can sort of tailor the content the best and suggest it and sort of boost user experience that way. But also, I guess, curation as well. So there's a strong element of curation. Who can actually curate the most relevant pool of content? And so it's sort of flipping the model there, right, from trapping consumers in to instead trying to create the most pleasant experience for any particular consumer. Yeah. What's interesting there is each consumer's preferences are different, right? Some people are going to value user experience more. You know, some people are going to value design more. Some people are going to value, you know, they're not going to mind if it looks kind of crappy. They just want the playback performance and the website performance to be optimal, right? And so that's the beautiful thing, is you can now access content anywhere in the web according to in the way that you just happen to prefer, you know? And I think that's what's important here, is it's balancing incentives on all sides of the spectrum. These platforms are incentivized to sort of create the most pleasant possible experience for their consumers. We're giving control back to content creators, but not completely. We're sort of balancing a little bit. And then now consumers of content sort of have hopefully less of an incentive to pirate content, because we can now find I guess a more effective way of monetizing digital content.
It's a two-way conversation for the consumers as well.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right.
Cool. We could talk about this all afternoon, maybe we better wrap it up. But how can someone follow your work or get involved with this project more, or where should they go?
So you can hop into the Alex Saunders Slack channel. So Alexandria is the first front-end platform or really content browser to access open index protocol content. So you can hop in there at chat.alexandria.io and drop us a hello. You could also hop into the Flow Telegram chat. I believe it's Flow Blockchain, is it? Yep, so the Flow Blockchain Telegram chat. But then more importantly than anything, take a look over the Open Index Protocol documentation. You can find that at oip.wiki.io.
Cool, we'll put links to all those in the description, guys. So thanks
actually, sorry, I got that one wrong. It's actually just oip.wiki.
Cool, we'll sort that out anyway. But thanks for chatting with us today,
Absolutely,
Josh.
No, pleasure. Thank you very much.